What if the peace you've been searching for your entire life is not in the future, not in success, not in money, not in achievement, but hidden in a place so obvious that you've overlooked it every single day because while you've been chasing better moments, better results, and better circumstances, life has only ever existed in one place, and that place is now. And the reason you feel stress, anxiety, and pressure is not because life is overwhelming, but because your mind is constantly pulling you away from the only moment that is real, trapping you between the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future, and in doing so, it creates a version of reality that feels heavy, complicated, and incomplete. And yet the truth is far simpler than you've ever been taught. Because the moment you return your attention to the present, something extraordinary happens. The noise begins to fade, the tension begins to dissolve, and a quiet sense of clarity begins to emerge. And in that clarity, you realize something powerful. That most of your problems were never in the moment itself, but in your resistance to it, in the constant internal dialogue that says this should be different, this should be better, this should not be happening. And that resistance is what drains your energy, clouds your thinking, and limits your ability to act effectively. But when you release that resistance and become fully present, you unlock a different way of operating. One where your mind becomes clear, your actions become focused, and your decisions become more precise. And this is where inner peace and outer success begin to align, because when you are no longer distracted by unnecessary mental noise, you gain access to a deeper level of intelligence, one that allows you to see opportunities more clearly, to respond to challenges more effectively, and to create results without the constant struggle that most people accept as normal. And this is one of the most powerful principles you can understand. That true power is not found in controlling everything around you, but in mastering your attention in this moment, because where your attention goes, your life follows, and when your attention is scattered, your results are scattered. But when your attention is focused, your results begin to compound. And this is how presence becomes more than just a spiritual idea. It becomes a practical advantage, a way of thinking, a way of acting, and a way of living that allows you to operate with clarity, confidence, and control. And once you begin to experience this even for a moment, you realize that everything you've been searching for has never been ahead of you. It has always been here waiting for you to notice it, and that is the power of now. Is a natural intelligence that begins to guide your actions, your decisions, and your path forward. And this is where true power lies, not in controlling everything, but in being fully present with everything. Because from that presence comes clarity, from clarity comes effective action, and from effective action comes results. And this is how inner transformation leads to outer success. Not by chasing more, but by becoming more aware, more aligned, and more conscious in everything you do. And that is the invitation here, not to believe these words, but to experience them, to step out of the noise of the mind, even for a moment, and feel what it is like to simply be. Because in that moment, you may discover something that has always been there waiting for you. Something that no achievement can give you and no loss can take away. And that is the power of now. As you begin to move deeper into this understanding, something subtle yet profoundly transformative starts to reveal itself. And that is this: the greatest barrier between you and peace is not the world around you, but the unconscious patterns within you. Because most of what you call your life is not lived in direct experience, but filtered through layers of thought, memory, and projection. And this is what creates the illusion of separation, the illusion that you are disconnected from life, from others, and even from yourself. When in truth, this separation exists only in the mind. Because as long as you are identified with your thoughts, you are not truly present. You are living in a constructed reality shaped by past conditioning and future anticipation. And this is why suffering persists. Not because life is inherently painful, but because the mind resists what is, constantly comparing the present moment to an imagined version of how it should be. And this resistance is the root of all inner conflict. Because when you argue with reality, you create tension. And that tension manifests as stress, anxiety, frustration, and even physical discomfort. And yet the moment you bring awareness to this pattern, something begins to shift. Because awareness breaks the cycle. It interrupts the automatic identification with thought and creates a space between you and the mind. And in that space there is freedom, there is clarity, there is the beginning of true consciousness, because as emphasized in this teaching, the mind is not your master. It is a tool. Get it? And when used unconsciously, it dominates your experience, but when observed, it loses its control and returns to its proper role. And this is where a new level of intelligence begins to emerge, one that is not based on analysis or memory, but on presence itself. Because true intelligence arises when the mind is still, when you are fully engaged with the now rather than lost in mental noise. And this is why Eckhart Tolle points out that most people are not actually using their mind, the mind is using them, driving repetitive thought patterns that drain energy and create unnecessary suffering. And once you see this clearly, you begin to reclaim your power, not by fighting the mind, but by observing it, by becoming the watcher of your thoughts rather than the thinker. And this simple shift has profound consequences because it allows you to disengage from negative patterns without suppressing them, to witness fear without becoming fearful, to notice anger without acting from it. And this awareness dissolves the emotional charge that once controlled your behavior. Because what you observe without judgment begins to lose its grip on you. And this is where the process of inner transformation truly begins, not through force or effort, but through presence. Because presence is the light that dissolves unconsciousness. And as you cultivate this presence, you begin to notice that your reactions slow down, your responses become more intentional, and your overall experience of life becomes more peaceful and grounded. And this has a direct impact on every area of your life, including your ability to create success and financial stability, because when you are no longer driven by fear or urgency, you begin to act from clarity. And clarity leads to better decisions, more focused actions, and ultimately better results. And this is one of the most overlooked financial principles, that your external results are deeply connected to your internal state, because a mind filled with noise creates scattered actions, while a mind rooted in presence creates precise and effective actions. And this is where true productivity emerges, not from doing more, but from being more aware in what you do. Because when you are fully present, even simple actions become powerful. And this is why mastering your attention is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows, and where your IQ flows, results are created. And as you begin to live more consciously in the present moment, you will notice that your relationship with time itself begins to change, because you are no longer dominated by past regrets or future anxieties. You use time as a tool rather than being controlled by it. And this shift brings a sense of ease and flow into your life. Because you are no longer rushing toward an imagined future, you are fully engaged with the reality of the present. And in that engagement, there is a natural intelligence that guides your actions, helping you navigate challenges with greater calm and effectiveness. And this is where true confidence comes from, not from external validation, but from inner stability, Joe. From knowing that no matter what happens, you can remain present and grounded. And this inner stability is the foundation of both personal fulfillment and financial freedom. Because when you are not controlled by fear, you are free to take calculated risks, to pursue opportunities, and to create value without being overwhelmed by uncertainty. And this is how presence becomes a practical tool for success. Not just a spiritual concept, but a way of operating in the world with greater clarity, efficiency, and purpose. And as you continue to practice this awareness, you will begin to see that life is not something you need to control or force. It is something you participate in consciously. And when you align with the present moment, you align with the natural flow of life itself. And in that alignment, there is less resistance, less struggle, and more ease. And this ease does not mean inactivity. It means effective action. Action that arises from clarity rather than confusion, from presence rather than pressure. And this is the essence of living in the now. Not withdrawing from life, but engaging with it fully without the burden of unnecessary mental noise. And as you deepen this practice, you will begin to experience moments of stillness where the mind becomes quiet and a deeper sense of being emerges. And in those moments, you may realize that what you have been searching for has always been here. Not in the past, not in the future, but in the simple yet profound reality of this moment. And this realization is not just an idea, it is an experience, one that has the power to transform how you live, how you work, and how you create your future from this moment forward. As you move even deeper into this journey, you begin to uncover one of the most profound realizations of all. And that is this: most of what you have called your identity is not who you truly are, but a collection of thoughts, memories, and emotional patterns that you have unconsciously accepted as yourself. And this false identity, which Eckhart Tolle often refers to as the ego, is not something solid or real, but something continuously created and sustained by your thinking. Because every time you say, "This is me," or "This is my story," you are reinforcing a mental construct that exists only in time, rooted in the past and projected into the future. And this is why the ego is never at peace, because it depends on time to survive. It needs the past to define itself and the future to seek fulfillment. And as a result, it can never rest in the present moment. And this constant movement away from the now is what creates a deep sense of lack, a feeling that something is always missing, that something more is needed before you can finally feel complete. And yet the truth is that this sense of incompleteness is not coming from reality, but from the mind itself, because the mind is always searching, always comparing, always judging. And in doing so, it creates a continuous state of dissatisfaction. And this dissatisfaction becomes the driving force behind much of human behavior, including the pursuit of success, wealth, and recognition. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with these pursuits, they often become distorted when driven by the ego, because instead of being expressions of creativity and purpose, they become attempts to fill an inner void. And this is why even after achieving great success, many people still feel unfulfilled, because the external achievement cannot resolve an internal disconnection. And this is where the teaching of presence becomes so powerful, because it shifts your focus from becoming to being, from chasing fulfillment to realizing that fulfillment is already available in this moment. And this realization does not require you to abandon your goals or ambitions, but to approach them from a different state of consciousness, one that is rooted in presence rather than lack. And when you operate from presence, your actions become more effective, more aligned, and less driven by fear or insecurity, because you are no longer trying to prove your worth, you are expressing it. And this shift has profound implications not only for your inner peace, but also for your external success. Because when you are not burdened by the need to validate your identity through outcomes, you become more focused, more creative, and more resilient. And this is one of the most important financial freedom principles you can understand. That true wealth is not just the accumulation of resources, but the ability to act without inner conflict, to make decisions from clarity rather than compulsion, and to create value from a place of alignment rather than desperation. And this is where the concept of acceptance becomes essential. Because acceptance does not mean passivity or resignation. It means acknowledging reality as it is before taking action. And this simple yet powerful shift eliminates unnecessary resistance, because resistance consumes energy while acceptance frees it. And when your energy is no longer tied up in fighting the present moment, it becomes available for meaningful action. And this is why acceptance is not weakness but strength. It is the foundation of effective action. Because you cannot respond intelligently to a situation if you are internally resisting it. And this is something that becomes increasingly clear as you deepen your awareness, because you begin to notice how often the mind creates unnecessary problems by labeling situations as good or bad, right or wrong, acceptable or unacceptable. And these labels create emotional reactions that distort your perception and limit your ability to respond effectively. When you see through this pattern, you begin to experience a new level of freedom. Because you are no longer controlled by automatic reactions, you are able to pause, to observe, and to choose your response consciously. And this is where true power lies, not in controlling external circumstances, but in mastering your internal state. And this mastery is what allows you to navigate challenges with greater ease and confidence. Because you are not overwhelmed by them, you are present with them. And this presence brings a sense of stability that is not dependent on outcomes, because it is rooted in something deeper than success or failure. And this deeper foundation is what allows you to take risks, to pursue opportunities, and to grow without being paralyzed by fear. And this is how presence becomes a practical advantage in the world of business and finance, because it enables you to act decisively without being reactive, to remain calm under pressure, and to maintain clarity even in uncertain situations. And this combination of clarity and calmness is what leads to better decisions, and better decisions lead to better results. And as you continue to integrate this awareness into your life, you begin to notice that your relationship with success itself begins to change. Because success is no longer something you chase, it becomes something that emerges naturally from your actions, and those actions are no longer driven by the need to complete yourself, but by the desire to express your potential. And this shift from lack to expression is one of the most powerful transformations you can experience, because it aligns your inner state with your outer actions, creating a sense of flow and ease that is often mistaken for luck, but is actually the result of clarity and presence. And as you deepen this state, you begin to experience moments where the mind becomes quiet and a deeper sense of aliveness emerges. A sense that you are not just a thinker or a doer, but a conscious presence experiencing life in real time. And in those moments, you may begin to realize that the identity you have been defending and trying to improve is not your true self. It is simply a story. And when you see this clearly, you are no longer bound by that story. You are free to engage with life in a more direct and authentic way. And this freedom is not something you achieve in the future, it is something you access in the present. And this is the essence of the teaching, that the power you are seeking is not ahead of you, it is here, not in what you will become, but in what you already are. And the more you bring your attention to this moment, the more that truth reveals itself, not as an idea, but as a living experience that transforms how you think, how you act, and how you create your life from this moment forward. Awareness is strengthened through presence, not through overthinking, because overthinking often leads to confusion while presence leads to clarity, and clarity leads to effective action, and effective action leads to results. And as you continue to practice being present, you will begin to notice that your relationship with time itself begins to change. Because you are no longer dominated by it, you are using it as a tool rather than being controlled by it. And this shift brings a sense of freedom. Because you are no longer rushing toward the future or dwelling on the past, you are fully engaged with what is happening now. And in that engagement, there is a sense of flow, a natural rhythm to your actions that feels effortless and yet highly productive. And this is where true efficiency emerges. Not from doing more, but from being fully present in what you do. Because when your attention is undivided, your actions become more focused and more impactful. And this is how presence becomes a competitive advantage, not just in your inner life, but in your external achievements. Because while others are distracted by noise and mental clutter, you are grounded in clarity and purpose. And this clarity allows you to navigate challenges with greater ease, because you are not overwhelmed by them. You are simply responding to what is in front of you. And this response is not reactive. It is conscious, and conscious action is always more effective than unconscious reaction. And as you deepen this practice, you begin to experience moments where the mind becomes quiet and a deeper sense of stillness arises. And in that stillness, you may begin to sense something beyond thought, something that cannot be fully described but can be deeply felt, a sense of presence, of aliveness, of being connected to something greater than the thinking mind. And this is what Eckhart Tolle refers to as being, the essence of who you are beyond all mental constructs. And when you begin to access this dimension even briefly, it changes your perspective, because you realize that your true identity is not the voice in your head, it is the awareness behind it. Not the thoughts you think, but the consciousness that observes them. And this realization is the beginning of true freedom. Because once you know that you are not your mind, you are no longer controlled by it. And this is where the journey takes a profound turn. From trying to manage your thoughts to transcending them, from being lost in time to being rooted in the now. And as this awareness deepens, it begins to influence every aspect of your life, from how you relate to others, to how you approach your work, to how you create your future. Because now your actions are no longer driven by unconscious patterns, but by conscious presence. And this is the foundation of a life that is not only successful, but deeply fulfilling, because it is aligned with the truth of who you are. and that truth can only be found in one place. Not in the past, not in the future, but here in this moment where life is always unfolding, and where the power you have been seeking has always existed, waiting for you to become aware of it. As you continue to deepen into this realization, you begin to encounter another profound truth, one that quietly reshapes your entire relationship with life, and that is this. Most of the suffering you carry is not created by what is happening now, but by what you were holding onto from the past or projecting into the future. And this accumulated pain, as described in this teaching, lives within you as an energy field, something that continues to influence your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions even when the original cause is long gone. And this is why certain situations trigger disproportionate reactions, why small events can create intense emotional responses. Because you are not just reacting to the present moment, you are reacting to layers of unresolved past experiences that are still active within you. And this is what Eckhart Tolle refers to as the pain body. A stored accumulation of emotional pain that feeds on unconsciousness and thrives when you are not present. In the moment you become aware of this pattern, something powerful begins to happen, because awareness breaks identification, and when you are no longer identified with the pain, you are no longer controlled by it. And this is where healing begins, not by trying to eliminate the pain or suppress it, but by bringing conscious attention to it, by feeling it fully without judgment or resistance. Because what you resist persists, but what you observe dissolves. And this is one of the most important principles you can apply not only in your inner life, but in every area of your external world. Because the same pattern exists in how you deal with challenges, problems, and even financial struggles. When you resist them, they grow stronger, but when you face them with clarity and presence, they begin to lose their power. And this is where emotional intelligence and financial intelligence begin to merge, because both require awareness. Both require the ability to see clearly without being overwhelmed by reaction. And as you develop this awareness, you begin to notice that your relationship with your emotions changes. Because you are no longer trying to escape them or control them, you are simply observing them, allowing them to arise and pass without attaching your identity to them. And this creates a space within you, a space where you are no longer driven by unconscious impulses. And in that space, there is freedom, because you now have the ability to choose your response rather than being trapped in automatic reactions. And this is where true power begins, not in controlling external circumstances, but in mastering your internal state. And this mastery is what allows you to navigate life with greater ease. Because you are no longer at the mercy of every emotional wave that arises, you are anchored in presence. And from that presence, you can respond with clarity, with intention, and with wisdom. And this has a direct impact on your ability to create success and stability in your life. Because when you are not reacting impulsively, you are able to make better decisions that are not driven by fear or insecurity, but by understanding and awareness. And this is one of the most important financial freedom principles you can embrace. That your external results are a reflection of your internal state, because when your mind is clouded by unresolved emotions, your actions become inconsistent and reactive. But when your mind is clear, actions become focused and effective. And this clarity allows you to identify opportunities that others may overlook, to remain calm in situations where others panic, and to take calculated actions rather than impulsive ones. And this is what creates long-term success, not just effort, but awareness, not just activity, but alignment. And as you continue to practice this presence, you will begin to notice that the pain body loses its intensity, because it can no longer feed on unconsciousness. And without that fuel, it begins to dissolve. And this process may not happen instantly, but with consistent awareness, it becomes inevitable, because the light of consciousness gradually dissolves the darkness of unconscious patterns. And as this happens, you begin to experience a lighter state of being, a sense of freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, because you are no longer carrying the weight of past pain into the present moment. And this freedom allows you to engage with life more fully, to take action without being held back by fear or past conditioning. And this is where true creativity emerges, because when you are not burdened by the past, you are free to respond to the present moment with fresh perspective and new possibilities. And this is the essence of living in the now, Not being trapped in old patterns, but being open to what is unfolding in this moment. And as you deepen this practice, you may begin to notice that even challenging situations no longer affect you in the same way, because you are not adding unnecessary resistance to them. You are simply present with them, and this presence transforms your experience. Because instead of being overwhelmed, you are able to observe, to understand, and to respond, and this is where suffering begins to dissolve. Not because life becomes perfect, but because your relationship with it changes. And this change has profound implications for every aspect of your life, including your financial journey, because when you are no longer driven by fear or scarcity, you begin to operate from a place of abundance, not necessarily in terms of external resources, but in terms of in clarity. And this internal abundance is what allows you to create external abundance, because it influences how you think, how you act, and how you make decisions. And this is why true financial freedom is not just about what you have, it is about how you operate. It is about your ability to remain present, to remain clear, and to remain aligned, regardless of external circumstances. And as you continue on this path, you begin to realize that the transformation you are experiencing is not just about reducing pain. It is about awakening to a completely different way of living. A way of living that is not driven by unconscious patterns, but guided by conscious presence. And in that presence, there is a sense of peace, a sense of clarity, and a sense of quiet power that allows you to navigate life with confidence and ease. Because you are no longer reacting to the past or fearing the future, you are fully engaged with the reality of this moment. And in that engagement, you begin to discover that everything you have been seeking has always been available to you. Not in some distant future, but here and now, waiting for you to become aware of it and to step into the power that has always been within you. And now you arrive at the deepest realization, the place where all teachings dissolve into direct experience, where understanding is no longer intellectual but lived. And this is where everything becomes simple. Because the truth you have been seeking is not something you need to achieve. It is something you need to recognize. And that recognition happens only in the now. Because as this teaching has revealed again and again, the present moment is not just a moment in time. It is the doorway to your true nature, the only point where life unfolds. The only place where transformation is possible. And when you fully step into this realization, something shifts at the core of your being, because you begin to see that the mind, which once dominated your experience, is no longer your master. It becomes what it was always meant to be. A tool. Something you can use when needed and set aside when not. And in that space beyond constant thinking, you begin to experience a deeper dimension of yourself, a presence that is shot, still, and yet profoundly alive. And this presence is not something you create, is something you uncover. Something that has always been there beneath the noise of the mind, waiting for your attention. And as you begin to rest in this presence more consistently, you will notice that your relationship with life transforms in ways that are both subtle and profound. Because you are no longer reacting to every thought, every emotion, every external situation. You are observing, allowing, and responding from a place of clarity. And this shift changes everything because it removes the unnecessary struggle that once defined your experience. And in its place, there is a sense of ease, a natural flow that emerges when you are aligned with the present moment. And this does not mean that challenges disappear or that life becomes perfect. But it does mean that your experience of those challenges changes. Because you are no longer resisting them, you are meeting them with awareness, and awareness transforms your response. It allows you to act without fear, to move forward without hesitation, and to make decisions that are not clouded by past conditioning or future anxiety. And this is where the practical power of presence becomes undeniable, because it enhances every aspect of your life, including your ability to create success, to build stability, and to achieve financial freedom. Not through struggle, but through clarity. Because when you are fully present, your actions become more precise, your focus becomes sharper, and your energy is no longer wasted on unnecessary mental noise. And this is one of the most powerful financial principles you can understand. That clarity is more valuable than effort. Because effort without clarity leads to exhaustion, while clarity with presence leads to effective action, and effective action produces results. And as you continue to operate from this state, you will begin to notice that opportunities appear more natural. Not because the world has changed, but because your perception has changed. You were able to see what was always there, but previously hidden by distraction and overthinking. And this heightened awareness becomes a form of intelligence that guides your decision, helping you navigate complexity with simplicity and uncertainty with confidence. And this is where true mastery emerges, not in controlling every outcome, but in maintaining your presence regardless of the outcome. Because when you are anchored in the now, you are not dependent on external conditions for your sense of peace or stability, and this independence is the foundation of true freedom, because it allows you to act without fear of loss, to create without attachment, and to engage with life fully without being overwhelmed by it. And this is what transforms your relationship with success itself, because success is no longer something you chase in the future. It becomes a byproduct of how you show up in the present. And when you show up with clarity, awareness, and intention, your actions naturally lead to meaningful results. And those results begin to compound over time, not just in terms of external achievements, but in terms of internal growth. Because each moment of presence strengthens your connection to your true self, and that connection becomes your greatest asset, one that cannot be taken away by circumstances, one that does not depend on external validation, and one that continues to deepen the more you align with it. And this is where you begin to understand the true meaning of abundance. Because abundance is not just about having more, it is about being more aware, more present, more aligned with the reality of this moment. And from that state, external abundance becomes a natural extension rather than a forced pursuit. And this is why the journey you have taken through these teachings is not just about understanding concepts, but about transforming your way of being. Because when your way of being changes, everything else follows. Your thoughts become clearer, your actions become more effective, your relationships become more authentic, and your life becomes more fulfilling. And as you stand in this awareness, you may begin to realize that what you have been searching for was never outside of you. It was never in the next achievement, the next opportunity, or the next stage of life. It has always been here in this moment, in the quiet stillness behind your thoughts and the awareness that is reading these words right now. And this realization is not something you need to hold on to or remember. It is something you can return to again and again simply by bringing your attention back to the present moment. Because the now is always here, it is always available, and it is always the gateway to everything you seek. And as you continue to live from this understanding, you will find that life becomes less about striving and more about allowing, less about resisting and more about flowing, less about becoming and more about being. And in that being, there is a quiet power, a deep peace, and an unshakable clarity that no external circumstance can take away. And that is the true essence of this teaching. Not something to believe, but something to live, not something to chase, but something to realize here and now as the very foundation of your existence and the source of everything you have ever been seeking.